All right. Yeah, welcome back, everyone. And we are on chapter 24, section 4, specialness versus sinlessness of A Course in Miracles. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and we'll start reading. And then after we read this section, we'll be able to discuss. Okay. All right, A Course in Miracles, chapter 24, specialness versus sinlessness. Specialness is a lack of trust in anyone except yourself. Faith is invested in yourself alone. Everything else becomes your enemy, feared and attacked, deadly and dangerous, hated and worthy only of destruction. Whatever gentleness it offers is but deception, but its hate is real. In danger of destruction, it must kill, and you are drawn to it to kill it first. And such is guilt's attraction. Here is death enthroned as savior. Crucifixion is now redemption. And salvation can only mean destruction of the world, except yourself. What could the purpose of the body be but specialness? And it is this that makes it frail and helpless in its own defense. It was conceived to make you frail and helpless. The goal of separation is its curse. Yet bodies have no goal. Purpose is of the mind, and minds can change as they desire. What they are and all their attributes, they cannot change. But what they hold as purpose can be changed, and body states must shift accordingly. Of itself, the body can do nothing. See it as a means to hurt, and it is hurt. See it as a means to heal, and it is healed. You can but hurt yourself. This has been oft repeated, but is difficult to grasp as yet. To minds intent on specialness, it is impossible. Yet to those who wish to heal and not attack, it is quite obvious. The purpose of attack is in the mind, and its effects are felt but where it is. Nor is the mind limited. So must it be that harmful purpose hurts the mind as one. Nothing could make less sense to specialness. Nothing could make more sense to miracles. For miracles are merely change of purpose from hurt to healing. The shift in purpose does endanger specialness, but only in the sense that all illusions are threatened by the truth. They will not stand before it. Yet what comfort has ever been in them that you would keep the gift your Father asks from him and give it there instead? Given to him, the universe is yours. Offered to them, no gifts can be returned. What you have given specialness has left you bankrupt, and your treasure house barren and empty, with an open door inviting everything that would disturb your peace to enter and destroy. Earlier, I said, consider not the means by which salvation is attained, nor how to reach it, but do consider, and consider well, whether it is your wish that you might see your brother sinless. To specialness, the answer must be no. A sinless brother is its enemy, while sin, if it were possible, would be its friend. Your brother's sin would justify itself and give it meaning that the truth denies. All that is real proclaims his sinlessness. All that is false proclaims his sins are real. If he is sinful, then is your reality not real, but just a dream of specialness that lasts an instant, crumbling into dust. Do not defend this senseless dream in which God is bereft of what he loves, and you remain beyond salvation. Only this is certain in this shifting world that has no meaning in reality. When peace is not with you entirely, And when you suffer pain of any kind, you have beheld some sin within your brother and have rejoiced at what you thought was there. Your specialness seemed safe because of it. And thus you saved what you appointed to be your Savior and crucified the one whom God has given you instead. So are you bound with him, for you are one, and so is specialness his enemy and yours as well. So interesting. That's exactly what we were talking about earlier, Pam. Yeah, when we first got on, Pam was sharing some epiphanies.
I don't know about that because I missed that part, but it's interesting because this section clearly helps you to see that if you don't release yourself from guilt, you don't have a process for being able to do that, then you're holding on to specialness. And by holding on to specialness, then you're guaranteeing yourself uncertainty. So specialness is a lack of trust, in my estimation of a simpler way to say it. Specialness signifies just a deep mistrust in the actual reality. The actual what's real is not trusted.
Right.
And
Right.
it brings about, therefore, a need for guilt, a need for a reason to project distrust, dysregulation, confusion, upsets, worries, frustrations onto anyone else.
Sure.
It brings about a need to do that, an attraction to doing that, which, of
Sure.
course, is a self sabotaging victim delusion. And that then penetrates the awareness and causes the central fear of separation to occur also. So it's like a self-perpetuating system that's always dysfunctional, always ego-driven, always confusing, generally upsetting and bringing about suffering.
Sure.
So that's my insights into the purpose.
Pam, could you share again what you shared with me earlier?
Um, which was what?
No, I was saying if Pam could
Oh,
share
Pam.
what
Okay,
she
I'm
was
sorry.
sharing.
You
Yeah.
said
No, no, you're sure, of course.
I'm not positive of everything I said. I know I kind of started with just realizing how simple it is to practice the course by letting go of judgment. I don't remember what I said exactly. Like that's all we have to do.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't mean to put you on the spot. I remembered how profound it was. You said, I've just realized how simple it is to change the way I see others when I let go of judgment, right? When you make a choice to be in a space, because we're talking about Thanksgiving, of course, and being around people, and of course, all the things that the typical family drama that come up. And we actually didn't talk about that, but it was kind of like, tell me about your Thanksgiving. And Pam was like, it was great. I just sat there and realized that, when I let go of judgment, everything was fine. And I didn't even see what was to judge after I let it go, and everything changed.
And where that happens for me mostly is an intentional meditation. I don't really need to do it when I'm out in the world. I
Mm.
practice it on my own with my own thoughts, letting go of my judgment of myself because I know everything is a projection. If I'm judging it, it started here. And so I work on it when there's no distractions. And
Right.
and then it disappears in my meditation. And then it doesn't even, well, it doesn't come up that often out in the world. It comes up as a lesson, a beautiful lesson where I realized, oh my God, I was holding this judgment against myself from past deeds. And now I'm seeing somebody else does that too. And I'm like, oh, there's something in me that's like judgment. And so I don't want to judge them. And I realized, oh my God, I've been judging myself for this. I'm letting that go. And then it was just like, it's gone over. Like, and I didn't even know it. I don't, this is like super personal stuff. I'm not being very specific,
Right.
and I could be.
No, you don't have to be. I just wanted to, I'm just noticing that this is exactly what we had talked about earlier, and you weren't being personal earlier about it either, but I think you said, and it even happens with pain,
Yeah,
physical pain. You said, when I stop judging
thinking,
it, yeah, and when you stop thinking about it, it's gone.
right.
It's
I
that,
stop judgment, and then the thoughts stop, and then there's no body there, so there's no pain.
yeah. So judgment becomes a judgment against ourselves. And
Right.
that's what causes the pain.
Right.
Yeah.
And when
That's
we
it.
let go of that self-judgment, it's the marvelous thing is then we can go deeper, because the self-judgment distracts us, number one, and then we see it as a struggle or as a painful event, so we don't go there. It's like, oh, I've got this weakness in me. I need to cover it up or get it behind me or whatever. I need to defend against it rather than, but once you don't judge yourself, you're able to go deeper and see what your beliefs were around that. And then forgiveness to the other just comes naturally because they may be where you were. And so you don't see that as a bad thing anymore. It's like, wow, we're kind of all in this together.
So are you saying
that-
that you just have to see through it or look past it, or somehow there has to be a place in your mind that's free of this judgment, is what you're saying.
There is.
Yes.
So you have to find that place in your mind which is free of that judgment, and then you don't need to defend yourself, and so you're not attacking yourself, and so then you're open to the idea that perhaps the same occurs or is occurring with those that you connect with.
So for me, my chain of thought that got me to that place was, if I am not only a creation of God, but I am in the image of likeness, and I have those same powers as the sonship. That is how I was meant to be. So why would I be judging it? Isn't that kind of like smacking God in the face, saying you made something imperfect somehow? It's just my perception that I then chose to change to be as God. And when I was able to see myself as such, then where's there any judgment? Because
So
if
do you
God
experience it
doesn't
as a
judge,
trans-temporal sort of awareness that in other words, you stop being the mind that's separated, you find yourself in your heart, you find yourself loving, peaceful, and joyful, and then it seems to change your reality. Your reality doesn't seem to be needing to have any judgment or qualifications or any specialness about it.
yes.
Thank
It's interesting. When I was reading this, a couple of things came up for me. First of all, when it says specialness is a lack of trust in anyone except yourself,
No.
I specifically remember a point in my life where I said out loud, I am never trusting anyone again except myself. Because I just had it with the world, right? I'm like, that's it. I'm not trusting anybody except myself,
Right.
and said it with that
I
kind
think
of
everybody's
anger.
been there at one point or another.
And it's interesting because I feel like it's such a journey that, I mean, it is a useless journey, right? But it's a journey, and I feel like that journey got me to a place where I pushed everyone away to the point where I found myself in a deep state of depression, where they say you hit rock bottom, right? And I just saw that on a show the other day. The guy came up to the other guy and said, "Congratulations." I mean, the guy was like literally ready to commit suicide. he goes, congratulations, you've hit rock bottom. You needed to get here. And I'm like, that was kind of stark, but yes, I mean, it was almost like you get to that point where I got to that point, shouldn't speak for others. I got to that point where I didn't want to live anymore because I had lost faith in all of it, but it was all of that,
Outside.
all of this stuff outside of me, I lost faith in. And I had to let go of all of it before I even knew there was something inside of me.
Right.
And that's when I saw that light, right? It's when not saw it, I experienced it, right? That's when I got to that place where I experienced, wow, there's something else, you know, there's something that exists after you let go of all of this, then you find the thing that's the truth.
Yeah. So
See, have you learned to just sustain that heart?
Yes.
So what happens with me, if I may chime in, is that you realize that you have been putting everything outside yourself, and then all of a sudden I realize, holy shit, that's the way I am too. My mind is not even reliable to myself, and that kind of put me in a like, what? So it was a daunting realization for me where, holy shit, I'm like that as well. What am I doing?
Great mind, it's ego, right?
What am I doing? You know, and that kind of say, you know, I can no longer think like this.
Yep. Yep. And to answer your question, Eric, you know, I can get myself to that place, but not if I'm thinking myself to that place, if that
Right.
makes sense.
I know.
I
Yeah.
can get myself to that place when I'm in that place of no mind. So, for example, when I was doing my yoga practice this morning, I was in like eagle pose, right? And you get into this drishti gaze. So I focused on like a gaze of nothing. And in that moment, I noticed that the waves, and Cynthia knows what I'm talking about. We've got this big giant lake behind us. I noticed the waves stopped moving. And I was like, wow, I like stopped time for this
Yeah.
moment. And in my mind, I recognized I was in that place of no mind. And
Yeah.
that's kind of it, right?
That happened to me also with time stopping more than once. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
And
pretty
that's
cool.
where the next reading comes in.
Yeah, let's go. Does anybody else have anything they want to bring up before we continue? All right, let's go then. This should be fun. The Christ in you. The Christ in you is very still. He looks on what he loves and knows it as himself. And thus does he rejoice at what he sees because he knows that it is one with him and with his Father. Specialness, too, takes joy in what it sees, although it is not true. Yet what you seek for is a source of joy as you conceive it. What you wish is true for you. Nor is it possible that you can wish for something and lack faith that it is so. Wishing makes real, as surely as does will create. The power of a wish upholds illusions as strongly as does love extend itself. Except that one deludes, the other heals. There is no dream of specialness, however hidden or disguised the form, however lovely it may seem to be, however much it delicately offers the hope of peace and the escape from pain, in which you suffer not from your condemnation. And dream, cause are interchanged. For here, the maker of the dream believes that what he made is happening to him. He does not realize he picked a thread from here, a scrap from there, and wove a picture out of nothing. For the parts do not belong together, and the whole contributes nothing to the parts to give them meaning. Where could your peace arise but from forgiveness? The Christ in you looks only on the truth and sees no condemnation, that could need forgiveness. He is at peace because he sees no sin. Identify with him, and what has he that you have not? He is your eyes, your ears, your hands, your feet. How gentle are the sights he sees, the sounds he hears. How beautiful his hand that holds his brothers, and how lovingly he walks beside him, showing him what can be seen and heard, and where he will see nothing, and there is no sound to hear. Yet let your specialness direct his way, and you will follow, and both will walk in danger, each intent in the dark forest of the sightless, unlit, but by the shifting tiny gleams that spark an instant from the fireflies of sin and then go out, to lead the other to a nameless precipice and hurl him over it. For what can specialness delight in but to kill? And what does it seek for but the sight of death? Where does it lead but to destruction? Yet think not that it looked upon your brother first, nor hated him before it hated you. The sin its eyes behold in him and love to look upon, it saw in you, and looks on still with joy. Yet is it joy to look upon decay and madness and believe this crumbling thing, with flesh already loosened from the bone and sightless holes for eyes, is like yourself? Rejoice you have no eyes with which to see, no ears to listen, and no hands to hold, nor feet to guide. Be glad that only Christ can lend you his, while you have need of them. They are illusions too, as much as yours. And yet, because they serve a different purpose, the strength their purpose holds is given them. And what they see and hear and hold and lead is given light, that you may lead as you were led. The Christ in you is very still. He knows where you are going, and he leads you there in gentleness and blessing all the way. His love for God replaces all the fear you thought you saw within yourself. His holiness shows you himself in him, whose hand you hold, and whom you lead to him. And what you see is like yourself. For what but Christ is there to see and hear and love and follow home? He looked upon you first, but recognized that you were not complete. And so he sought for your completion in each living thing that he beholds and loves, and seeks it still, that each might offer you the love of God. Yet is he quit, for he knows that love is in you now, and safely held in you by that same hand that holds your brothers in your own. Christ's hand holds all his brothers in himself. He gives them vision for their sightless eyes and sings to them of heaven, that their ears may hear no more the sound of battle and of death. He reaches through them, holding out his hand, that everyone may bless all living things and see their holiness. And he rejoices that these sights are yours, to look upon with him and share his joy. His perfect lack of specialness he offers you, that you may save all living things from death, receiving from each one the gift of life that your forgiveness offers to yourself. The sight of Christ is all there is to see. The song of Christ is all there is to hear. The hand of Christ is all there is to hold. There is no journey but to walk with him. You who would be content with specialness and seek salvation in a war with love, consider this. The Holy Lord of heaven has himself come down to you to offer you your own completion. What is his is yours, because in your completion is his own. He who willed not to be without his son could never will that you be brotherless. And would he give a brother unto you, except he be as perfect as yourself, and just as like to him in holiness as you must be? There must be doubt before there can be conflict, and every doubt must be about yourself. Christ has no doubt, and from his certainty, his quiet comes. He will exchange his certainty for all your doubts if you agree that he is one with you, and that this oneness is endless, timeless, and within your grasp, because your hands are his. He is within you, yet he walks beside you and before, leading the way that he must go to find himself complete. His quietness becomes your certainty, and where is doubt when certainty has come? That was beautiful. It's a great reminder, right?
Yep. That the divine is in the stillness.
Mm-hmm. And the acceptance of the at-one-ment, right? The acceptance that you are one with Christ, that you are one with that mind of God. And in that acceptance, then you see that in your brothers.
I must say that I struggle with that. I read this and other places about Christ, and I so want to be one with Christ, and it eludes me. I just don't quite know how to get there.
That's the way there, though.
Pardon
Yeah.
me?
That is the way there.
I think in the trying to get there is where we keep ourselves from there, if that makes sense, right? When the mind is trying to get there, it's almost like we're already aligned with the ego mind, and we can't get there when we're aligned with the ego mind. We almost have to be at that place of surrender, right? Where we just, it's like that last lesson in the Course in Miracles, this holy instant I give to you, be you in charge. Because when we try to be in charge, we can't get there. But when we surrender and allow the one mind of God to be in charge, whether we want to call that God or Christ or love or the universe, when we surrender and let go of our trying to get there, we just say, be you in charge. I'll follow you, certain that your direction will bring me peace. And you just do it over and over and over again, anytime you don't feel joy. And I think that's the work, right? That's the vigilance. Like when you get to that place of, I'm not feeling peaceful, I'm not feeling joyful, I've already aligned with fear. That's when you have to say, this holy instant I give to you.
And that's the difference between doing and not doing. As
Right.
Yoda says, when you're trying, that does not exist. You're either doing or you're not doing. So when you say I'm deluded, you're not doing.
And we're only saying this because we've all been there, Maynard. It's not that you're the only one who struggles with it.
Right,
We've all
right.
struggled with
Still
it.
there.
Sometimes
Me, I
we
found that the
stray
12
away.
steps.
We have to be reminded. That's why we keep reading the book.
I mean, I found that the 12 steps of recovery was much easier to understand. Because the first 3 steps basically takes you through that whole process that Terry is explaining. So if I don't know about my heart, because my mind is a separating mind, it fragments my identity, and I can find myself with many different identities during the course of any particular day, because each of them has specific tasks to perform. And if I'm good at doing that, then I never really notice that there's something that's just off about all that. But if I begin to notice that for some reason, like I was an alcoholic, for example, so I couldn't live that way forever, and I had to stop drinking alcohol. Well, when I stopped drinking alcohol, I needed a system to help me to get through that process. The first three steps of the 12-step recovery says, step number one says the most important thing is that my life had become unmanageable. But the fact of it is that my life was unmanageable before alcoholism. And this is what the reason was that I drank, was because of unmanageability. So I didn't know how to deal with unmanageability, and I needed a way to be able to do that. And the step says that I needed an authority greater than myself. I needed an authority in my life greater than myself. And the second step introduces the idea of spirituality and the idea of the need is provided for us if, in fact, we can allow ourselves to see that authority is present in our lives. The third step says I need to make decisions according to that God of my understanding. In other words, there has to be a way to make decisions that are certain. And certainty is, of course, the opposite of uncertainty in a way, but there is no such thing as uncertainty in certainty. So every choice point then that comes along, I have to be in my heart, just like Terry was saying. When I notice that there's no peace, I notice there's no happiness and comfort within myself, I have to have a system for being able to deal with that. And that system is given to me in the Course in Miracles. And like I said, it was easier with the 12 steps, because the 12 steps, the first 3 steps deals with that whole problem of I don't know myself, all the existential craziness that makes it impossible to understand the world and reality and so on and so forth is dealt with in the first 3 steps. So there you go, Mater. Study the steps.
Also, the lessons are huge. I think the lessons and the texts are meant to be done together on purpose, because the lessons give you the experiential, the experience, right? When you're doing the lessons, this hand is not this hand, right? Well, what does that mean? It takes you through a series of undoing and unprogramming everything that we've been programmed to believe is true. And I feel like that's the 365 lessons are so important in the undoing, because until you let go and undo the programming, you're not going to be able to accept there is another way of looking at things. Similar to kind of what I explained before, when I was mad at the world and didn't want to trust anybody but myself, I had to let all of that go. I had to let go of the world before I could find the peace in my heart. I didn't even know it was there. I didn't know it existed, because since I was a little girl, I was told, be good, be nice, do all the right things, and you'll live happily ever after. You'll find your Prince Charming, and then your life will be happy. And I did all those things, and nothing was as it was supposed to be, according to my fairy tale childhood. That wasn't much of a fairy tale. So, it goes back to you have to let go of all the illusions. And how do you do that if you don't have a process? And, the process, like Eric said, he found the process in the 12-step. A lot of people do. I found the process in the 365 lessons, 1 lesson a day, every day. And I've been doing them for years. And every time I do them, they make more and more sense.
Agree with that. The 365 lessons also is a way to go about doing that. It just didn't happen for me that came first. That's all.
Right.
The lessons, which I try to do every day, and I try to do them with 20 minutes in the morning, 20 minutes at night, and try to do the hourly 5-minute. But the challenge is keeping my focus on the lesson for 20 minutes or for 5 minutes. And I'm having to continually let go of something that is intruding. But if I can do that, if I can let that go and just be still and quiet, then the lesson comes through. Does that make sense?
Totally. And, Course in Miracles also said, all it takes is a little willingness. You don't even have to believe the lesson. You don't, it's just the little willingness to do them, and they'll have effect. And yes, it totally makes sense. Yeah.
Stop believing yourself as well.
Yeah.
That's a hard one too, but the challenging one. But our minds are not reliable to us. That's one of the acceptance things for me anyway. Especially when you start spinning stories, you're not being reliable there. Because it's just a story.
But mind must be made reliable, in fact, if we're to make decisions properly. So like the above the battleground, which is something we talked about in one of the previous chapters, allows us to see that in fact we have to live in a way that makes decisions, and the mind is necessary because the mind is what is going to be used for that process. So the mind has to join with this heart. The heart is the altar at which I meet the Holy Spirit, but the mind has to join with that also. So now I no longer am using a separated mind. I'm using a joining mind.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So when things happen to us, and I'm glad you brought up the mind and the heart, we feel first with our heart, and then we go into our mind. But it's felt here first. I mean, and this is, I think, data to prove it scientifically.
Well, there's no first and second in
so with that concept in mind, okay, see how I go back to the mind? With that concept in mind, you're right. How to unite them. And Terry hit it on the head when she said that, because sometimes I'm caught between the two, and I say, I don't know what the decision is. I give it up. I say, I can't decide for myself. Christ mind, higher self, you take it over.
Right, there's a not two that occurs, exactly. So when the mind joins with the heart at the altar of the Holy Spirit, then there's no two, there's no mind separated from the truth. There's no mind separated from this joining. The joining is with the heart. The heart and the mind are one then. There can't be two in order to solve the problem of duality. There can't be two. You have to have one. One is the only solution. The course is not really a non-dual teaching. However, the course brings you to non-dual awareness, if you allow it to.
I like what it says in paragraph 3 that we just read. Where could your peace arise but from forgiveness? The Christ in you looks only on the truth and sees no condemnation that could need forgiveness. He is at peace because he sees no sin. And what that said to me is what Maynard said. I'm practicing my lesson, and then my mind wanders, but I'm not to judge that. I'm to not identify with that mind that's wandering away from the truth. I just catch it as soon as I can and forgive it, and
exactly
invite Christ.
Exactly, because that mind provides the identity.
Yeah. And then it happens. If that's all I want, I ask for that. That's all I want. I'm automatically forgiven because there's no sin. There never was. That never even happened.
Very well put.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Pam. All right, shall we keep going? All right, I'm going to share my screen again. Salvation from fear. Before your brother's holiness, the world is still, and peace descends on it in gentleness and blessing, so complete that not one trace of conflict still remains to haunt you in the darkness of the night. Your Savior from the dream of fear. He is the healing of your sense of sacrifice and fear, that what you have will scatter and turn to dust. Assurance, God is here and with you now. While he is what he is, you can God is knowable and will be known to you, for he could never leave his own creation. And the sign that this is so lies in your brother. For you that all about yourself may disappear before his holiness. See in him God's creation, for in him his Father waits for your acknowledgement that he created you as part of him. Without you, there would be a lack in God, a heaven, a son without a father. There could be no universe and no reality. For what God wills is whole and part of him, because his will is one. Nothing alive that is not part of him, and nothing is but is alive in him. Your brother's holiness shows you that God is one with him and you, that what he has is yours, because you are not separate from him, nor from his Father. Nothing is lost to you in all the universe. Nothing that God created has he failed to lay before you lovingly as yours forever. And no thought within his mind is absent from your own. It is his will you share, his love for you. And look upon yourself as lovingly as he conceived of you before the world began, and as he knows you still. God changes not his mind about his Son with passing circumstance which has no meaning in eternity, where he abides, and you with him. Your brother is as he created him, and it is this that saves you from a world that he created not. Forget not that the healing of God's Son is all the world is for. That is the only purpose the Holy Spirit sees in it, and thus the only one it has. Until you see the healing of the Son as all you wish to be accomplished by the world, by time and all appearances, you will not know the Father, nor yourself. For you will use the world for what is not its purpose, and will not escape its laws of violence and death. Yet it is given you to be beyond its laws in all respects, in every way and every circumstance, in all temptation, to perceive what is not there. In all belief, God's Son can suffer pain because he sees himself as he is not. Look on your brother, and behold in him the whole reversal of the laws that seem to rule this world. See in his freedom yours, for such it is. Let not his specialness obscure the truth in him, for not one law of death you bind him to will you escape, and not one sin you see in him, but keep you both in hell. Yet will his perfect sinlessness release you both, for holiness is quite impartial, with one judgment made for all it looks upon, and that is made not of itself, but through the voice that speaks for God in everything that lives and shares his being. It is his sinlessness that eyes that see can look upon. It is his loveliness they see in everything. And it is he they look for everywhere, and find no sight, nor place, nor time where he is not. Within your brother's holiness, the perfect frame for your salvation and the world's, is set the shining memory of him in whom your brother lives, and you along with him. Let not your eyes be blinded by the veil of specialness that hides the face of Christ from him, and you as well. And let the fear of God no longer hold the vision you were meant to see from you. Your brother's body shows not Christ to you. He is set forth within his holiness. Choose then his body or his holiness as what you want to see. and which you choose is yours to look upon. Yet will you choose in countless situations and through time that seems to have no end, until the truth be your decision. For eternity is not regained by still one more denial of Christ in him. And where is your salvation, if he is but a body? Where is your peace, but in his holiness? And where is God himself, but in that part of him he set forever in your brother's holiness, that you might see the truth about yourself, set forth at last in terms you recognized and understood. Your brother's holiness is sacrament and benediction unto you. His errors cannot withhold God's blessing from himself, nor you who see him truly. His mistakes can cause delay, which is given you to take from him, that both may end a journey that has never begun and needs no end. What never was is not a part of you. Yet you will think it is, until you realize that it is not a part of him who stands beside you. He is the mirror of yourself, wherein you see the judgment you have laid on both of you. The Christ in you beholds his holiness. Your specialness looks on his body and beholds him not. See him as what he is, that your deliverance may not be long, a senseless wandering without a purpose and without accomplishment of any kind is all the other choice can offer you. Futility of function, not fulfilled, will haunt you while your brother lies asleep, till what has been assigned to you is done and he has risen from the past. He who condemned himself, and you as well, is given you to save from condemnation, along with you, and both shall see God's glory in his Son, whom you mistook as flesh and bound to laws that have no power over him at all. Would you not gladly realize these laws are not for you? Then see him not as prisoner to them. It cannot be what governs part of God holds not for all the rest. You place yourself under the laws you see as ruling him. Think then how great the love of God for you must be, that he has given you a part of him to save from pain and give you happiness. And never doubt but that your specialness will disappear before the will of God, who loves each part of him with equal love and care. The Christ in you can see your brother truly. Would you decide against the holiness he sees? Specialness is the function that you gave yourself. It stands for you alone, as self-created, self-maintained, in need of nothing, and unjoined with anything beyond the body. In its eyes, you are a separate universe, with all the power to hold itself complete within itself, with every entry shut against intrusion and every window barred against the light. Always attacked and always furious, with anger always justified. You have pursued this goal with vigilance you never thought to yield, and effort that you never thought to cease. And all this grim determination was for this. You wanted specialness to be the truth. Now you're merely asked that you pursue another goal with far less vigilance, with little effort and with little time, and with the power of God maintaining it and promising success. Yet of the two, it is this one you will find more difficult. The sacrifice of self you understand, nor do you deem this cost too heavy, but a tiny willingness, a nod to God, a greeting to the Christ in you, you find a burden wearisome and tedious too heavy to be borne. Yet to the dedication to the truth as God established, it no sacrifice is asked, no strain called forth, and all the power of heaven and the might of truth itself is given to provide the means and guarantee the goal's accomplishment. You who believe it is easier to see your brother's body than his holiness, be sure you understand what made this judgment. Here is the voice of specialness heard clearly, judging against the Christ and setting forth for you the purpose that you can attain and what you cannot do. Forget not that this judgment must apply to what you do with it as your ally. For what you do through Christ, it does not know. To him, this judgment makes no sense at all. For only what his Father wills is possible, and there is no alternative for him to see. Out of his lack of conflict comes your peace, and from his purpose comes the means for effortless accomplishment and rest.
I have a question. The first sentence in paragraph 8. I know what sacrament is, and I thought that benediction was like a sermon. Is that the proper definition of that when it's used in that sense?
Look. Benediction is the utterance or bestowing of a blessing. So your brother's holiness is sacrament and benediction unto you. So the benediction unto you would be the bestowing of a blessing.
Okay. I can see where that be a sermon, mean a sermon too, but blessing, that makes sense. Okay, thank
Yeah.
you.
I like the first sentence in paragraph 4. Forget not that the healing of God's Son is all the world is for.
Mm.
So when the world comes to my mind and I'm giving it reality, that's the ego. When I see it through the eyes of Christ, I only see what's timeless and eternal, universal. It's true for everyone, always. But the world has to come up for me to see that, oh, I'm looking at through the eyes of the ego. And then, oh, I can forgive that by just asking for help. Holy Spirit, Jesus, help me here. Let me see it how you see it. And then they use the word disappear. It just disappears. It can really happen as quick as that. And then there's no even memory of whatever it was I was thinking was wrong with the world.
Yeah.
Yeah, I find that especially helpful to see that the only purpose of the world is to save us. I, for years, was very concerned politically. And I had to finally realize that right, left, neither one, it's the arrogance of my specialness to think that I could correct either one. That's specialness. I'm not that special. But if I'll step back, maybe I will learn something from someone that I might not like. They're there to save me. And that makes a whole different picture. It helps you see things differently, and it's not easy sometimes to see the holiness of a person instead of the body.
Exactly. Great point, Maynard. I was also taken back by paragraph 8 when it says, What never was is not a part of you. And then sentence 5 says, yet you will think it is until you realize that it is not a part of him who stands beside you. He is the mirror of yourself, wherein you can see the judgment you have laid on both of you. Your specialness looks on his body and beholds him not. Yeah. And when you put all those together, that the only purpose for this whole world is to be able to look on your brother and see the Christ in him and see that you are one with him. The only purpose. And it makes everything else seem silly. Well, we only have 5 minutes left, and we have a whole nother section, and I don't want to get into it if we're not going to have time to chat about it. So we'll save that for next week. But we still have 5 more minutes.
I just have to say that when you are able to see the Christ in the brother, is when you are also feeling that Christ in you.
Right, because then you see that your brother is the mirror.
And there's an exercise that is done to try and get there.
Yeah.
That exercise by looking each other in the eyes and just holding still and trying to be quiet, especially if you do it with your beloved, it works wonders.
Did you ever do it with a mirror?
Say again?
Did you ever do that exercise with a mirror, an actual mirror, facing a mirror yourself?
I have tried it with a mirror.
Yeah.
I have tried it. And by trying, meaning I was not able to accomplish much.
Well, did you notice the changes that occur in the mirror image of yourself?
Yes, that's true. And it's scary.
Okay, it was scary. Okay, yeah. Yeah, it is. It can be scary if you.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Well, I did that with a person also. And I also experienced the morphing in the person when I was staring at the person. It wasn't scary, but it was certainly a surprise to me, though.
Yeah. I mean, if you do it with somebody that you're really close with, I think it helps a little bit more to be accepting of what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Than somebody that you don't know. But it's good to do it anyway.
We were laughing, but
well, the more you do it, the easier it gets.
Yeah. Yeah, it's still difficult to see that that's yourself that you're looking at.
It is.
When it changes like that. So the person, so you notice that also about the person, that they seem to change, their appearance seemed to sort of morph. Is that right?
Yeah, it's an exercise definitely that will.
Yes. Okay.
Will be changing the way.
So that's what happens in the mirror. Also, your own image begins to change in the mirror when you're looking at the mirror, and you don't necessarily know that's your unconscious mind that's doing that. That you're seeing your unconscious mind, and you're seeing, so symbolically this is representing what's going on in the unconscious. And the same thing's occurring when you're looking at somebody else. It's not their unconscious, you're looking at your unconscious. You're looking at your mind, and the way it works is very difficult to follow, really, because that's what happens in the mind. The mind is morphing constantly between one identity, another identity, and this confusion and that confusion, this interpretation, that interpretation, and so on and so forth. And that's what you see when you stare at this person or at the mirror yourself, either way. Does that seem right to you?
Many things happen. It's an exercise that sometimes it probably should be done if you have never done it under a controlled situation, so that you would know what to do to come out of it if you.
Well, I did it in a controlled situation, and they basically kicked me out. I was at an S training, EST, you know, it was called a forum at that time. And when I explained what had happened, they basically freaked out and thought I was mentally ill or something like that. And needed to get medications and see doctors and stuff like that.
Boy.
I've heard some extremely wild stories that, you know, of because what happens is we are this luminous being, believe it or not. And sometimes you can see that. And when you start to see something like that, it can be mind daunting. Okay. Or the figure in front of you disappears, for instance, you know, or you see the light, or you see skeletal.
Yeah.
I can
And it
go
goes
on and
back
on.
to, yeah, whatever your mind believes, you'll see, right?
Correct.
Because you're going to follow whatever you have faith in.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And that's the tricky part.
Yep.
Anyway, great conversation, everyone. Thank you so much for joining today. And hopefully I'll see you all next Monday.
Okay,
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank everyone.
Thanks,
you.
Terry.
Bye.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everybody.
Bye, guys.
Thank you.